Coming up today, looking to quell public discontent over the power abuse scandal, President Park Geun-hye forges ahead with her reshuffle of the top office, appointing a new chief of staff and senior political secretary. The court is set to decide whether to approve an arrest warrant for the woman at the heart of the power abuse scandal. Prosecutors could also seek a warrant for a former presidential secretary with alleged ties to the scandal. Plus, with the US presidential election just days away, President Obama says the FBI violated guidelines and trafficked in innuendo by alerting Congress to its probe into Hillary Clinton's email use. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Thursday, the 3rd of November. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this afternoon, another day, another shake-up at Korea's presidential office as President Park Geun-hye looks to ease public anger over the power abuse scandal that's engulfed the nation. After firing some of her key aides linked to the scandal over the weekend, President Park has picked a new chief of staff and senior secretary for political affairs. Song Ji-sun starts us off.
Just a day after announcing a new prime minister nominee to set up a new cabinet, President Park has appointed new aides to assist her through the tough times. Han Kwang-ok, chairman of the Presidential Committee for National Cohesion, is the new chief of staff. The four-term lawmaker, who also served as a chief aide to former President Kim Dae-jung, has long been a symbol of national unity and democracy in Korea.
President Park appointed Han based on his lifelong faith to the values of reconciliation and tolerance. It will provide suitable ground to assist the president at a difficult time from the people's point of view and to carry out state affairs in a stable manner.
For the other key post, Ho Won-jae is the new chief aide for political affairs. The seasoned reporter, who also functioned as a standing commissioner at the Korea Communications Commission, is anticipated to closely coordinate and communicate with the media, the parliament, and diverse sectors across society. The post for policy coordination, formerly held by An Jong-bum, who is now under prosecutors' investigation for his alleged close links with Choi Soon-sil, has yet to be filled. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Now, the ruling and opposition parties split along party lines in their reactions to the announcement from the presidential office, with the ruling party in favour and the opposition taking a more critical position. The ruling Saenuri party welcomed the nominations, saying the party expects their experience and insight will contribute to helping the country get through difficult times like now. The minor opposition People's Party said the presidential office is just trying to change the subject away from the Choi Soon-sil scandal when it should be listening to the angry voices of the public. Meanwhile, the main opposition Democratic Party of Korea held a general meeting of all its lawmakers this morning and will hold another tomorrow, Friday. The party is seeking to figure out their next steps and determine whether they will accept the Prime Minister nominee and whether they will seek impeachment for the President or press her to resign. Staying with domestic politics, Korea's three main rival parties have agreed to hold a full session of the National Assembly to vote on about a dozen pending bills, but there's no guarantee it will proceed smoothly as the opposition parties are still furious about President Park Geun-hye's decision to reshuffle her cabinet without consulting them first. The ruling party, for its part, is hoping to use the session to pass several livelihood bills, including a resolution on the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics and a contingency plan to clamp down on illegal fishing in Korean waters. Later today, the top court in the Korean capital will decide whether to approve the arrest warrant for Choi Soon-sil, the woman at the heart of this power abuse scandal. Prosecutors could also seek an arrest warrant for a former presidential secretary. Lee Min-young reports.
The question of whether Choi Soon-sil, President Park Geun-hye's confidant and the woman at the center of a political scandal that has thrown the entire nation into a state of paralysis, will be arrested could be decided as early as Thursday, after a hearing that starts at 3 p.m. Choi's lawyer had previously told reporters that his client will be present at the hearing. A fierce battle is expected between state prosecutors and Choi's defense attorney. Prosecutors requested an arrest warrant for Choi on Wednesday afternoon on 2 charges, being an accomplice to a crime of abuse of authority and attempted fraud. She does not hold an official post, but is being accused of using her connections to the president to pressure corporations to make large contributions to 2 government-linked foundations. The attempted fraud charge relates to the funds she allegedly raised for the 2 foundations in question and then funneled into a paper company for her own personal use. Later on Wednesday, former presidential secretary An Jong-bum, who has been charged with being the main perpetrator in the crime of abuse of authority, was also arrested without warrant. The decision came roughly 10 hours after he first appeared for questioning by prosecutors as a suspect in the ongoing abuse of power scandal surrounding Choi. The reason prosecutors say was that he denied the primary charges against him and has been found to have pressured key witnesses into making false statements before he appeared for questioning. Prosecutors also say they had reason to believe An could attempt to destroy evidence unless he was detained. Prosecutors must file a court request for an arrest warrant within 48 hours of the booking, so they could file the request for the warrant Thursday after questioning him on whether he used his influence to coerce conglomerates into giving large donations to the 2 foundations, and if other officials from the presidential office were involved in the process. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
US President Barack Obama has made his first public comments on the FBI's disclosure of its decision to review new emails related to Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server. He criticized any actions that could allow suggestions and innuendo to prevail over facts. Ian Shin reports.
President Obama isn't thrilled about the FBI's disclose its review of new emails that may or may not be linked to Hillary Clinton's use of a private server while she was Secretary of State. In an interview with Now This News released Wednesday, Obama said, quote, "I do think that there's a norm that when there are investigations, we don't operate on innuendo, we don't operate on incomplete information, and we don't operate on leaks. We operate based on concrete decisions that are made."
And she is tough.
The president is just one of many who have been critical of FBI director's decision to send a letter to members of Congress telling them of the Bureau's review of newly discovered emails just days before the election. Meanwhile, the candidates are busy barnstorming the country in a final effort to shore up their support in key battleground states. According to Real Clear Politics' electoral map on Wednesday, Clinton has 226 of the 270 electoral votes needed to clinch the election, to 180 for her rival Donald Trump. With just 6 days to go until Election Day, the candidates' efforts in swing states, where about 132 electoral college votes are at stake, could decide who will be the next person to take the top job at the White House. Lee Shin, Arirang News.
Now, North Korea is under a myriad of unilateral and international sanctions for its nuclear missile provocations, but Russia appears determined to continue to trade with Pyongyang in certain areas. US-based broadcaster Voice of America reported Thursday that Russia's Minister for the Development of the Russian Far East told a local news agency that Moscow is expected to continue its economic cooperation with North Korea within the limits of the sanctions. He said that includes the supply of electricity to the north, as Russia and North Korea signed an electric power deal late last year. A new survey has offered a rare peek into life inside North Korea. It found North Koreans often tell jokes and make critical remarks about the government in non-public spaces. Conducted by the Center for Strategic and International Studies and released on Wednesday, the poll found all but one of the 36 respondents said their family, friends or neighbours complain or make jokes about the government in private. The centre said the finding is unusual as criticism of the regime is a serious crime punishable by imprisonment or even death. The think tank did not reveal how or when the survey was conducted. Now, the staggering amount of household debt in South Korea has policymakers on edge. Looking to tackle the issue head-on, the government has rolled out measures to cool rapidly overheating property markets in areas such as Gangnam. Shin Se-min reports.
The government is looking to slap limits on the apartment application system in a bid to stop the real estate market overheating in certain regions. Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho says the government wants to regulate speculative investments in areas like Gangnam in southern Seoul, one of the most affluent districts in the metropolitan area. Data from the Land Ministry shows apartment prices in Gangnam jumped almost 6% on average in the first 10 months of this year, while the nationwide figure only edged up 0.5%. The restrictions will cover Seoul, parts of Gyeonggi-do province, as well as the administrative capital of Sejong and the southern city of Busan. The limits are aimed at protecting other regional property markets while cooling speculative investments in popular areas. The measure comes amid heated competition to snap up new apartments in some parts of the country, including Gangnam, while other areas face an oversupply of housing. This comes against a backdrop of growing calls to curb rising household debt that hit an all-time high of $1.1 trillion as of the end of June. It also follows previous government efforts this year to stem the rapid expansion of household debt and requiring banks to institute stricter screening procedures for those taking out mortgages. Minister Yoo added that the government will work to monitor economic factors weighed down by uncertainties like the ongoing corporate restructuring drive, newly introduced anti-graft law, and potential rate hike in the United States. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
As a follow-up to that package, the US Federal Reserve has kept interest rates on hold for November in a widely expected move ahead of the presidential election next week. The Fed, however, did set the stage for a possible hike for next month as the economy shows signs of momentum. Kim Min-ji with the details.
The US Federal Reserve has stayed pat on interest rates for November. After a two-day meeting, the rate-setting committee decided to wait for further evidence of continued progress towards its objectives. The move was widely expected with less than a week before the presidential election. The Fed, however, did signal a possible rate hike in December. It said the U.S. economy had gained steam, job creation remained solid, and that policymakers were more confident that inflation was nearing their 2% target. The Fed added the case for increased borrowing costs continued to strengthen, meaning action could be taken when the committee gathers next month for its final meeting of the year.
It seemed very much that they are still guiding us to December, thinking that a rate increase will occur then, another 25 basis points, the same as last December. And the commentary in the release did indicate they're still thinking that way.
But this could be a headache for emerging markets, including Korea, as it could trigger a massive capital outflow. The Bank of Korea has two more monetary policy meetings this year, and a potential U.S. rate hike would mean less room for Korea to change its monetary policy, which currently stands at a record low of 1.25%.
The BOK isn't really in a situation to lower rates, given the nation's high household debt and overheated real estate market, and a rate cut runs opposite to the U.S. policy. It's not in a position to follow suit either, as existing economic conditions don't look robust enough to handle higher rates given uncertainties Korea faces.
The general consensus is that the Bank of Korea is expected to keep its rate on hold for this year, although some experts cautiously predict a rate cut early next year should fourth quarter growth rate fall short of expectations. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Korea's foreign exchange reserves fell for the first time in 4 months in October. The Bank of Korea says reserves fell by $2.6 billion from the month before to $375 billion. This is the first decline since a $10 billion fall in June. Despite the increased gains from investments in foreign assets, the amount of non-US dollar foreign currency assets converted into the US dollar decreased due to the strength of the greenback. As of the end of September, Korea was the world's 7th largest holder of foreign exchange reserves. China topped the list with over $3 trillion, followed by Japan and Switzerland. Well, that's all we have for now on this Thursday lunchtime here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for tuning in. We'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Our next bulletin is coming up at 2 p.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.